Hi guys, welcome to Yesterday's Coffee, the podcast where we chat about fitness, nutrition, and business all over coffee that may or may not have been brewed yesterday. And today we are chatting about the Whole30.
The Whole30 diet, that is one of those big popular ones around right now, and
very trendy.
Yeah, you hear about this a lot. It's
I get asked about it a lot. If it's worth it, if it's useful. I feel like unfortunately, I feel like the premise of Whole30 is to kind of, it's almost like a detox in a way, or like a reset. It's supposed to be a time for you to limit your exposure to foods that might be making you feel bad, and letting your body heal and giving you a better relationship with food. But I feel like even though those are all the goals of the Whole30 or the people who founded Whole30, most people just use it as a weight loss tool or want to use it as a weight loss tool.
Right. Because
that is a benefit to the Whole30 is that a lot of people do come out having lost some amount of weight.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think today, kind of to preface what we're going to do, we're going to basically read through the tenets of Whole30, tell you a little about what it is.
Exactly what it is.
And then we're going to go piece by piece, commenting on pros and cons, and then try to wrap it up at the end to see what we think overall.
Yeah, I've actually tried to do this before.
The diet itself?
The Whole30. I say try because I started it and I never finished it.
I'm surprised you even gave it that much time, to be honest.
Well, I mean, this was in college. This was before I
knew
a lot of things about nutrition. And it's not a bad setup, in my opinion. Like, I don't think that it's bad in any way. I just feel like it's not super necessary for most people. And I don't find it to be a good method for weight loss since most people tend to tackle weight loss from a deprivation standpoint, and like this falls in that category still.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of really good aspects of what this tries to do, but I think it takes it too far in a lot of respects that where you see a lot of restrictions that don't really have any merit aside from just being restrictions.
Well, I know there's like a reason behind all the restrictions. I don't think that they do a really good job of explaining why you're taking out these food groups at the beginning. Now, the book, I feel like, goes really in depth, and most people who start the program are encouraged to purchase the book, but you don't have to. And I feel like if you don't buy the book, you're very much missing out on like the education behind all of these rules.
Have you read the book?
I have not.
Neither have I.
But I know that it's a book of all the things about the diet.
Yeah.
And since they can take that entire book and condense it onto this one webpage, I would assume that it's more in depth.
Sure.
But I guess I'm still making an assumption.
But I'd also argue that a lot of these things that they are keeping you from eating, there are plenty of them that have no real merit to avoid.
Well,
that's my argument.
No, that's where you're wrong. But you're wrong. Because, okay, so let's go through what you're supposed to avoid. Okay. So, number one is no added sugars, real or artificial. So, these are no maple syrup, no honey, no agave nectar, no stevia even, I don't think, no Splenda. So, nothing natural or artificial.
Too. Yeah.
So, literally no method of sweetening except natural 100% fruit juice. That's the only sweet thing that you're allowed to eat on the Whole30.
Well, so I guess before we get into this, we should basically say, like, what do they tell you to eat? They say moderate portions of meat, seafood, eggs, lots of vegetables, some fruit, plenty of natural fats, herbs, spices, and seasonings. Foods with few ingredients and mostly unprocessed.
So basically just meat and vegetables. That is basically all it is. So you're not supposed to consume any added sugar or artificial sweeteners. Okay. No alcohol, no tobacco, no grains of any kind. So fibrous or not, no grains, they say.
And so this includes rice, this includes corn, oats, wheat, any sort of grain.
Yes. No legumes, so no beans, no lentils, no soy. That's a really big one. No peanuts. Do they take out all nuts? Or just peanuts?
I think they just say peanuts there. I don't know.
Peanuts.
I don't know the extent of that, but we'll say just peanuts for now.
no dairy, no
MSG or sulfites.
Yeah, no like preservatives.
Right.
And then no fake junk foods.
And
so
no baked goods.
That's what I'm saying. Like no trying to make a Whole30 approved dessert or Whole30 approved bread or Whole30 approved. What they basically try and say is, we don't want you to try and work around the Whole30 diet. We want you to just give these things up entirely. Which that's actually the part that I don't agree with the most, I think.
Yeah.
But these other things, so what's the thing that you argue with the most?
So the thing that I argue with the most are a lot of these specific things that you're removing. So if you look at some of the grains specifically, like rices, oats.
Well, they just say all grains, though.
Right. But again, this is making a restriction just to make a restriction. So there are very few people in the world that I would say rice is a bad thing for them.
Sure. Well, so basically what they're trying to say is don't eat grains because you can have a lot of like health issues or digestive issues related to the grains you consume. And also grains tend to make up most of your processed foods. So, as I was saying.
Sorry. The reason I don't think this is smart is because if you can digest something, there's no reason any of these things should be taken out.
No, 100%.
So just on...
They're generalizing.
On the merit of saying that you can't consume any of these things for no other reason than saying you can't consume them is my main problem with the Whole30 in its entirety.
And I don't agree with that either. But I do agree that there are certain situations where taking out legumes or taking out most grains is beneficial. But those people are, like, that's such a small population and it's so specific. So no, I don't agree that the Whole30 should just be, like, generalized for everybody. And that's what it is.
Right.
So I'm with you on that.
Well, and so here's the problem with that is, and one of the biggest problems of the Whole30 is that there's no point in which you add that back in. So the Whole30 is these restrictions for 30 days, and you do them, and that's it.
Yeah.
There is no reintroduction. There is no, we're going to try this and see how your body reacts to it. And that's
the biggest problem I think I have with the whole thing.
That's the problem of this whole mindset, and it's the
very
problem
restrictive.
that so many people get into is they go from one extreme to the other. They go from not caring about what they're eating, not paying attention to anything, to trying the Whole30, seeing some success with it, and then ultimately falling off because it's not very sustainable.
No.
But then they get this idea in their head that the only way they can lose weight is by restricting all of these things.
Yeah. That is the problem that I have is any of the positives that come out of this are so... they were created in such a vacuum, right? So like all the positives that come out of this, apart from just learning how to create better meals with better ingredients, like that's obviously a good positive, but like everything else has been created in this really restrictive 30-day vacuum.
Right.
Okay. And I think the problem is the people behind the Whole30, they would like to think that this is sustainable long term.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they kind of push this idea that once you get through the 30 days, you're going to feel accomplished and better, and you're going to want to stay on it longer, which is kind of, I think, how they live their lives, with some exceptions. But in order for them to sell the product, they've marketed it as a 30-day only thing. Right. They think that they're going to win you over and make you want to do it longer. But I feel like by marketing it that way and not being so upfront and honest, they create this really bad thing.
Well, I think most people that I've at least talked to that have done it are like grinding out that last week.
Oh my God. Everybody is miserable and they hate 30, it because it's
can't
not
wait to stop this thing.
It's not sustainable.
Right.
And here's the thing, right? By the time they get to the day 30, day 31 is them just stuffing their face with all the things that they didn't get to eat, which again is why this isn't sustainable, because then you're going to feel terrible.
Right.
And then you're going to be on this roller coaster again. I don't know. It's just not...
So before I just continue berating this thing and everybody thinks that I just can't stand to think about this.
There are some positives.
There are some positives to it. The one thing that I really love is the mindset that they try to instill of no cheating know anything as and
Oh, see, I didn't like that part.
no, see what I like about this is that it's the mindset of success and winning and accomplishing something. And being able to say, I'm going to do something and I'm not going to make any reservations about any of it. That mindset,
I don't like that approach.
I love.
That mindset is not for me.
I absolutely love that.
I need a more flexible mindset.
Right.
Where, like, I don't have to feel bad about myself. I don't know.
No, see, I think if you start a major weight loss or fitness goal or whatever it may be, and in your mind, you have this idea of like, oh, I can screw up all the time. It's fine. And sure, in reality, it's fine if you screw up. You can get back on it. But going into something with the mindset of, I'm going to execute this flawlessly, I think is very powerful. And I really like that about this. Because
I would say most people don't actually respond well to that, though. So I don't agree with that.
So that's what I like about this. Because it really is setting a goal and then making you stick with it. You can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah. And they are very direct about that. Like, there is a section that they very much say, like, don't be a wimp. Like, this is not hard. This is easy to do.
There's some good quotes in here.
Yeah, there's some good ones. It's down further, I think.
Okay, here it is. This is not hard. Don't you dare tell us this is hard. Fighting cancer is hard. Birthing a baby is hard. Losing a parent is hard. Drinking your coffee black is not hard. I love that. I absolutely
you very
love
much
that.
line up, I think, with this mentality. And here's the thing: I think the people who would do really well with it share that same mindset, and I feel like the people who do not respond well to. Well,
so here's the difference.
Restriction.
So, because I know exactly what you're saying, and you're completely right in saying that crazy restriction and beating yourself up about mistakes long term is a problem. And that is a problem. You don't want to get in such a mindset that if you make any sort of mistake, you totally give up. That's not good.
But that's a lot of people, and that's a lot of people because we have such like this big diet culture.
Right.
And so I think that programs that like facilitate that way of thinking are harmful to a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's what I think is also an issue with this is because the reason why that mindset is required on this is because this is not a long-term thing. So because
it's not supposed to be, even though they kind of want it to be. This is the part I still don't get. I just don't get it.
So there's no question about this. This is not a long-term thing.
No.
It's not.
It's not supposed to be.
It's not. And so that's why this mindset works with this, because it's a challenge. It's a 30-day challenge of you're going to give up all of these things that you don't need, and you're definitely going to see weight loss, and you're probably going to have better energy. And
I think it can bring awareness to those like things like, oh, if I don't eat junk every single day, I do feel better. I think it brings awareness to how food impacts your body and your life, which is good.
Absolutely.
That's a positive.
That is a positive. The biggest problem is that it just goes too far, because there are a lot of things that are in that restrictions list that you can absolutely incorporate in a sensible amount and create things that work within your nutrient requirements for the day that are going to give you just as much effectiveness from a weight loss standpoint, from a strength or endurance standpoint, and you can be much more flexible with what you're eating. That all comes down to understanding your macro balance, what your calories are that you need. And when you understand those things, you can be very flexible with what you're consuming. This gives you a lot of really good basics. And the one good thing about this that I would argue is that if you use this as a springboard to developing a base and then incorporating sensible options back in on top of that, this could be a really useful tool.
Definitely. No, I think it can be a useful tool. I think that the foundation is good. Excuse me. And I think if you're looking for some sort of reset, or if you're looking for some sort of structure, you're somebody who responds really well to structure, or you do feel completely crappy and you have literally nothing else to try, then great. Why not start here?
Yeah. So, and I do want to clarify, like, if you were to follow this strictly, there's absolutely nothing wrong
No,
with it.
this will not hurt you in any way.
Because what their tenets are good from a basic health nutrition standpoint. They are perfectly fine.
And you will get all the nutrients that you need.
Yeah.
You're not going to be missing anything on this diet.
Yeah, and so that is the key
even
here.
by taking out all of your grains and beans and things like that.
Right.
You're still going to be getting a lot of good vitamins and minerals. You're going to get all your macronutrients and you're going to be fine.
Right. The problem comes from the flexibility, the lack of flexibility, the over-restrictiveness that is inherent with this type of challenge. And that's why it's a challenge. If you're really just after something to see if you can mentally stick with something for 30 days, and truth be told, if you can do this for 30 days, then you can eat healthfully much easier than this.
Oh, definitely.
By incorporating things back in that you really enjoy and just understanding the balance of all your foods as a whole, it's so much easier once you lift some of those restrictions up. But using this as kind of an entry point into that can definitely be useful.
Oh, 100%. I think the problem is just that people tend to generalize and they'll see this list and they'll be like, oh, well, they say in order to live my best life and feel my best, I can't eat this, this, and this.
Right.
And even though they restrict the program to 30 days, people build this mindset of like, oh, if I ever want to be healthy or if I ever want to lose weight or if I ever want to have clear skin, I have to give up all these things forever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get all of these other misconceptions and articles that, dairy is the devil, or you can never eat grains ever again in your life, or just like that's what turns into all of these other overblown misconceptions.
Yeah. And I think this can almost instigate that yo-yo dieting mentality too, because you go
if you're approaching this
you can
for
go
weight
back
loss
and forth and get in that rut of thinking that this is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
That's one of the dangerous elements of it, because like we said, the particulars of the program are good, so you will see progress. But a lot of people don't necessarily understand, why am I seeing progress from all this stuff? Sure, not drinking's great. Not eating a bunch of baked goods is great.
Mm-hmm.
But some of those other things that you're, in my opinion, needlessly restricting can be one of the overall downfalls of the whole plan.
So I think that, like, if your goal is to lose weight, like if weight loss is your focus, this is not the program for you. I would never recommend this to somebody who's just looking to lose weight, because there are much easier and potentially more efficient ways to do that.
I'll add one caveat to that. So if it's a big long-term weight loss goal, 100%. I 100% agree with that. If it's something like maybe you're going on vacation in a month or 2 months and you just want to get as lean as possible in that kind of time, these types of restrictions can certainly help get you there.
Sure.
They're not going to be quite as effective as nailing specific macros along the way, but it can, if you don't feel like looking at numbers and
but if you don't
that type
feel
of
like
stuff,
looking at numbers, do you feel like looking at every single food label that you buy, or
sometimes
like cooking every single thing you put in your mouth? Like, I don't know. If what you're saying is, am I too lazy to follow like a different style diet to lose weight? This is not the lazy person's way to do anything.
A lot of people get hung up on numbers themselves, and this. I mean, this is pretty simple. If you know a fat from a carb from a protein,
sure,
you're
not
lot of thought
counting, but you're doing way more in terms of like cooking, preparing, thinking, shopping. Like the time that you would have to spend, you don't know, you didn't do it. I did it. It's time consuming, okay?
I mean, if you're just doing lean meats and vegetables.
Well, but here's the thing, but a lot of
people
people don't know how to make just those simple plain ingredients taste good together. So that's where like cooking and planning and the recipes
30 days and they hate it by the end of it.
But that's what I'm saying is like what Whole30 offers you is they say, you should never be bored and you should never be like force feeding yourself these foods. That's not the point.
Right.
The point would be like learning how to make these things flavorful, and that is the part that takes time.
Yeah.
And reading all the recipes takes time.
Like obviously.
Yes, if I'm just going to eat boiled chicken and broccoli like every single day, sure, that's easy, I guess.
Sure.
But it sucks.
Yeah.
No. So like I'm
totally in agreement with you there.
Which, again, is another reason that a lot of people fail on this, is because they don't have the time or the mental capacity to really go through the whole process and spend as much time cooking and making things taste good. So they end up eating really plain meals and they get sick of it.
And then they don't reintroduce slowly and gradually and make it a sensible plan. They just go right back to what they were doing before.
Yeah.
So what would be an instance where you might recommend this to somebody, if at all?
So if somebody needs a lot of structure, like they don't respond very well to flexibility, or they are just feeling extremely motivated and would like to see more results in a shorter period of time, I would recommend this to somebody who doesn't feel good, who maybe has a lot of trouble sleeping, like has a lot of exhaustion or fatigue, doesn't feel good physically, aches and pains. Like, I would not necessarily recommend this. This would not ever be in my top. I mean, this would never really come into my mind for someone who wants to lose weight. But if you're coming to me and you're saying, like, I just don't feel good, this might be an option depending on who you are.
Right.
That I might recommend.
Because like you were saying at the beginning, the basics of this are kind of like a detox. Like, it's basically an elimination diet.
And that's what it is. And that's kind of, they do give that information to you. They do say, this was created to see how much better you can feel. And a lot of times people don't understand what that really means. You might not realize how bad you feel, which again, if you don't realize how bad you feel, then this also may not be a great plan for you, because you're not going to see the benefit. Like, you're not going to go into it with the right mindset of like, this is really going to change me. So you don't have as much, I don't know, like, what word am I looking for? You don't have as much motivation to stay on track.
Yeah.
If you come in knowing that you feel terrible, I feel like those are the people who respond well to these types of more restrictive elimination type diets, because they have probably already tried everything else, or they understand how much better they could feel.
Yeah.
So that gives them more motivation to stick to it.
Sure.
So that's who I would recommend it to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it can give you a solid base of what your foundation should be nutrition-wise, excluding a few things. Again, I think rice, potatoes, things of that nature, oats, as long as you can digest them, you don't have any intolerances there, are perfectly fine to incorporate. Plenty of the other things are perfectly fine too. But it gives you a solid foundation. And then if you come into it with the mindset of knowing that you can begin introducing more things and find that balance of these other foods that you were previously restricting, it can be a useful springboard to creating that foundation for a long-term plan.
Yeah, I think it's a good learning tool. Or if you're someone who's just curious and you want to know more about how food impacts your body, then this might be something to try.
Right.
But I think, it definitely takes a lot of commitment.
Yeah.
I think I lasted like 2 weeks maybe.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Maybe. I don't even know. I don't even know. But again, I think I was doing it like the wrong way though, because I was eating like boring, really gross things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So you got to be a really good cook if you're going to make this last for a while.
You just have to have time. Honestly, you just have to have time. Like, I was in college, I didn't have time, and I didn't have money, honestly, to buy all these ingredients that I needed. I was like, can't do it.
And know how to make these fewer ingredients taste good. So.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like I could maybe do it now. Like, I have the time and the energy to do it. I just have no desire.
There's no reason for
There's no reason for me to do it right now. But yeah. So pros and cons. The Whole30, it's I'm not going to sit here and say that it's terrible and you shouldn't do it and it's garbage. But if weight loss is your goal, this wouldn't be my first recommendation for you. And it is a big commitment. And they don't shy away from telling you that. They tell you it's a commitment, but there are harder things in life, as we've heard.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the Whole30.
That's the Whole30. So thanks for listening to our thoughts on the Whole30. If you have anything you'd like us to cover in the future, feel free to reach out to myself at hypertrofit.com. You can find Alexa at therootedrd.com. And we will see you guys again next week.
We'll see you next week.